Hi, everybody. This week's tip is a follow up on Being Organized Part 1. This week is Being Organized Part 2 and is specific to assignments. I've mentioned before that it's a good idea when you get an assignment to look over the instructions, take notes on the instructions, and to not just put the due date in your calendar, but to put the different components either in a calendar or a to-do list. I mentioned this in the time management tip of the week a few weeks back. And this is really important, and it'll help you survive CSHAP, it'll help you survive university, and it's a skill that you can transfer into any different kinds of work that involve managing projects with multiple steps. Okay, and it'll save you a lot of heartache, because the tendency, and I had this when I was a student because nobody taught me anything differently, was to have a paper agenda. We didn't have all this fancy electronic stuff back in the 90s when I was in CSHAP in university, and I would just write the due date in my agenda, but then sometimes if it was a month off, I wouldn't see it until, a few days before, and then I'd scramble. So this is something that I recommend, okay? So the first step, you get an assignment. Assignment's posted on Omnivox or whichever platform your teacher uses. One thing that you're going to put in your agenda for sometime in the days following that update. As soon as you see it, go find your agenda, whether it's electronic or paper, and put review instructions for, say, anthropology paper or math exam or whatever it is, okay? And so that's the very first step, and that's, there's so many benefits to looking at it, even if you don't plan on working on the assignment for another couple of weeks, because you have a bunch of stuff that you're already doing that week, just to know what the steps are. Okay, and if you have questions, then you can ask your teacher right away instead of asking your teacher the day before, where we really can't help you because it's due in less than 24 hours and you're asking us about something that's going to take more than one day to do, like research or something like that. So this is an old assignment. This is from this course, but back in the autumn of 2019, eons ago, right? And it was a term project that I had given my students. This was a term project that lasted all semester, and there were multiple parts, and this was the final part. And so here, if you were a student and you'd get this, and usually this bigger kind of like a final project, I usually give to students at least a month before. So, a student that had their shit together, which, nobody ever completely has their shit together. We just try, we do our best. But somebody who's trying to have their shit together would look at this and go, okay, so I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to take 10 minutes, 15 minutes just to go over the instructions and make sure I understand them. Okay, so I'm looking over this. Okay, so my teacher wants a paper that's this long. Okay, and they're giving me the structure here. And okay, so there's this stuff. And okay, so this is the structure. And okay, here's an example of what my reference list is going to look like. Okay, so I have to pay attention to APA here. Okay. And, as you do this, if you're the kind of person who likes to take notes on paper, you might have, your anthropology notebook or whatever, and you might be taking notes of some of the important things. You can also, when it's a Word document like this, you can add things, like you can download and you can add things and start typing in here, maybe in a different color so that it'll stand out, and like, okay, I don't know what Jackie means here, so maybe in red I'll put ask Jackie about this. All right, maybe I want to make sure that I see this. Jackie put it in bold, but I want to make sure I see it. It stands out for me. 3 concepts. Okay, all right. And the instructions usually, we're all different. All your teachers do it differently, right? I like to include some little tips, and I put them there not just for fun. They're usually things that you need to pay attention to. You really need to read all the instructions. It can be tedious. I know reading is not fashionable anymore, but it's a skill that you're going to need you know, and I know there are sometimes barriers why, you know, that make reading more difficult for people. If you need accommodations and things like that, these are things that you can talk to, you know, people in student services or your individual teachers about, right? And also when it's a Word document, the advantage of if you have it electronically, which I always do even in regular times, is that you can make the font bigger if you need to, right? You can, you know, okay, this is too small for me, I can make it bigger, or I can just, you know, use the little plus down here, right? So the important thing is you're looking through and then, okay, there's the point breakdown. This is what I'm going to have to hand in. I have to print up a hard copy, but I also have to put it up on Turnitin. Okay. Lateness, okay, good to know. I can't be more than 7 days late. There will be a penalty if I'm late, but, you know, oh, and if I need an extension for a big paper, okay, so, you know, and Turnitin instructions. So, and this is, you know, if I'm a student who already knows how to use Turnitin, all I need here is the ID, class ID, and password. So anyway, you take, and then you go back, okay, and then there's things you want to make sure. So you're going to take some notes on what these instructions are, and you know, again, to avoid making it overwhelming, you can break this up into chunks of, you know, what you're going to do. So that's your second step, is to break this up. And again, instead of just having that final due date in your agenda, you're going to maybe, I don't know, maybe highlight in blue the different steps that you're going to do, right? Or different colors. There's this is going to be one thing. You know, this was a multi-step process, so this particular paper, so one step is going to be go back to look at my old work. Okay, so 3 paragraphs. So this is going to be multiple steps here. So maybe I'll, you know, break this up into 3. Okay, and you can just go through and create your own notes. All right. So then again, if you're the kind of person who works with paper, you can, you know, in your notebook where you keep track of things, you can kind of write, okay, there's all these steps and I'm going to put dates next to these steps. Okay. So Tuesday afternoons are when I work on my anthro stuff. So I have a month to do this. So I'm going to plug this into my Tuesdays or something like that. So that's something that you can do. The important thing again is to, you know, be realistic. We all like to think that, oh yeah, you know, at the last minute I'll be fine, I'll take 6 hours and I'll get it all done. I've spent a big chunk of my adult life that way, and it led to burnout, and I had to take a sick leave 2 years ago. And I'm going to tell you why. None of us are great at properly estimating how much time something is going to take, and none of us are great at remembering how exhausted we get as the semester goes on. So when we're looking at these big final projects, we think, you know, on paper I can put 6 hours and I'll just do this. By the time you get there, you're probably going to be too exhausted, and then you're going to be stressed, and then it just the stress makes you more tired, and the tiredness makes you more stressed. And just be realistic about how much you can do in one chunk. If you know yourself and you know that you have a hard time focusing for more than an hour, then break things up into 1 hour chunks and put less in that hour. All right, if you think that magically you'll be able to write your whole development of an essay in 2 hours, well then maybe break that up into 2 2-hour chunks. All right, it's important. And if you wind up doing more, then that's great. You'll have a little bit more free time. But then if you do need all that time, then you'll be more relaxed because you know that you left yourself some wiggle room. All right, so for those of you who like to geek out on electronic, you know, time management stuff and organizational stuff, I'm going to show you something. If you're like a paper person and at this point you're like, okay, I get it, break it down, write down the different components of the project, put dates next to them, and then stick this in my agenda. Great, with estimates of how much time each thing is going to take me, then great. Then this video is done for you. But I'll take 5 minutes, maybe less, to show you something that I like to use. It's for those of you who like electronic things, and it's called Trello. Maybe some of you already use it. So Trello, I'll move myself out of the way here for now. Trello is, you can go to Trello.com and create a free account, and a free account gives you a lot of stuff. All right, I've been using this for several years just on a free account, and it doesn't really have a lot of ads, so it's pretty cool actually. And there's an app that goes with your phone and they sync. So it's really, really handy because you can take notes of things on the go and you can have it open on your computer. So I'm just going to go back here to home just to give you an idea. Basically what you do is first thing you do is you create teams. All right, so I have my home organization team and I have my work team. All right, because I use this for my personal stuff and for work. And so then once you have a team, each team with a free account, you can have 10 free boards. Now what a board is well, I'll show you. Like I have all these boards in home organization. You see camping's important to me. I have a whole board devoted to it. And here's, my work stuff, right? So these are different things that I do at work. So for example, if I look at my coursework, this is my, when I say coursework, it's the prep I have to do. It's kind of a mess right now. I haven't been great about maintaining it, but I have a to-do here, and then I have things for different topics, links that might interest students or that I can use in assignments and whatnot. So your board is going to look like, oh, I didn't stay there very long, did I? Go back here. So what your board is going to look like is you have all these lists, and each list has cards, and you can move the cards up and down on your list. You can archive them. You can do all kinds of things with this. Now I'll show you a sample board that I created just for this tip of the week, and I called it Assignments. So I'm pretending that I'm a student. So maybe my team here wouldn't be called work. Maybe it would be called school. Okay, and then maybe I would create a board just for assignments. I could have another board, say that's for weekly readings, another one that's for something else, clubs, other things that you do at school. Maybe bouncing off of last week, if you looked at last week's tip where I had the things where you take note of all your different courses and the teachers' names and the office hours and the their late policies and all that sort of thing, you could have a board devoted to that with your teachers on a list for each teacher. So that's one way you could do it. So here, this sample board for assignments is like, say, I have different assignments. So anthro assignment, this the name of the list. Maybe I could give it a date, due May 14th. I'm making all this up, right? So don't go putting my 14th in your agendas. Maybe my geography, we're pretending we're at the end of the semester here, right? It's like that little fantasy that we're almost done the semester, which I know people look forward to because school's a lot of work. Maybe my geography one is due May 5th, and so on and so forth. I could add here, math exam, math final exam, maybe that's after the classes end, May 18th, all right? So you can have these lists, and you can have a whole bunch of them, and it just keeps expanding in that direction over here. I could close this if I wanted to, and I'll reopen it to show you some more stuff. So you can just keep adding lists, and then when you're done with the list, so say after you finish this exam, you could just archive the entire list. All right, so the neat thing about this is that you have all these cards, and I'm gonna move this over so you see it, because that little, I don't know if you see this little stop button, but it's kind of annoying. So you know how, before we looked at the assignment and we go, okay, we're gonna break it up into separate components. Well, let's pretend there's an anthropology assignment, and the assignment is to, read chapter 6 and write a paper about chapter 6. I'm making this up. I would never do that as a final paper, but just let's pretend. Okay, so maybe I'm like, I have a hard time reading an entire chapter in one chunk, so I created here one card, read and take notes, half of chapter 6, and the second half of chapter 6, then I'm going to review my notes, then I'm going to create an outline for the paper, then I'm going to write my first development paragraph. Notice I didn't put intro. One tip is to write your intro last, and if you insist on writing your intro first, you have to go back and change it, because we always wind up as we write changing what we're going to write. And if your intro doesn't reflect what's in the paper, normally you lose points for that. Lots of students lose points for that, and so you don't need to. So I'm going to take some time to write my first development paragraph, my second one, third, fourth, however many are supposed to be in there. It's not always, you know, that 5 paragraph rule, 3 body paragraphs, intro and conclusion. That in college, some teachers insist on it, but it's not always that way. Normally it's more complex than that, and it depends on your topic. So then, you know, I don't just write it and submit it, right? And first, before I even do my conclusion and introduction, I look at my development and review the transitions between the paragraphs. Does this make sense? Is it all in a logical order? Then I'll write my conclusion, because my development is solid. Then I'll write my intro. Then I proofread. Then I check my citations and reference list, because in this paper you need APA and all this kind of stuff. And then I'm going to go back again and review the submission instructions so that I know where to send it, right? Do I submit it on Leia? Do I send it on Turnitin? Do I print it up and bring it to the teacher, right? Things you need to know. So so that's one thing. So then, you know, you can add cards really easily. So say I'm doing this for my humanities assignment, maybe this is a research paper, so I've already reviewed the instruction. Maybe my first step is going to be to use, is it ProQuest? You know, the library thing where you can search articles, find articles. I don't remember what it's called. I haven't used it in a while. Find articles via library search. Okay, so I'm looking at my articles. Read one article and take notes. Read second article and take notes, and so on and so forth. So basically, once you start, what's cool about this is you start and see I'm typing here, blah, 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 and I press enter and it takes me to the next one. And when you're done, you can just click X here, okay? And so, you know, you can do this and, okay, well, I'm done my I've done my genome. Let's pretend there's a bunch of stuff here. I'm done this paper, I've submitted it, I can archive it, and it's gone. And then it frees up space for other things you want to add. So that's pretty cool. And once you're in a card, I'm going to open up a card here. You can add other things, right? So I can add some notes for myself here. Pay attention to graphs. Let's say, save this. I can, this is, you'll see things that don't apply to you if you're using this on your own as a to-do list, because this is designed for teamwork, you know, so organizations that work virtually. So here for members, you don't need to worry about it. You can put labels. So here, if you wanted to assign to do is your green stuff, doing, and then orange is, you can, you know, done, whatever, you know, you can do it that way. So then you can assign colors to your thing, to your card. You can add a checklist here, so you can name your checklist something, and then here you can add items to your checklist. So that's kind of neat as well. There's a power up, and I have the power up. I'm just going to X out of that here and show the menu. So I have what's called a calendar power up. With a free account, you can have, I think, 3 power ups on a board. So here, you know, you go to power ups and it shows you all the different things. And if you find the calendar one, and then it's theoretically syncs up to, say, your Google Calendar. I don't rely on that because, you know, it's not that reliable, but it's one thing you can try for due dates, for example. So I could, you know, put a start date as well, a due date. You can attach things. So if you wanted to here, you could attach the original assignment instructions. You can add a cover as well. So it can be one of their pictures, or you can choose a color here for the card. Okay. And then it gets highlighted like that. So there's all kinds of things you can play with. You don't need all those bells and whistles, though. Just having these lists and these cards can be very helpful. And so this is something you can experiment with if you're still haven't found a way of organizing your stuff. I like Trello, but it's easy. You have to check it on a regular basis for it to be useful. Otherwise, you're just putting stuff on there. Once you have the app, you can even have a little widget that just you can send things to whichever board and list you want. And so there you go. This is an option for some of you who are looking for new ways to be organized electronically. But the basic message is it doesn't matter if it's electronic or on paper, you need to break down your assignments into manageable chunks and not just have this due date and think that you're going to get it all done 5 hours before it's due. You can. A lot of you have gotten away with it. I got away with it. But the quality is much lower, usually, with some exceptions. Most people aren't able to produce the highest quality work at the last minute in a compressed amount of time. So there you go. I hope this is helpful. I love to geek out on this stuff, so if you want to play around with Trello and talk to me about it, let me know. We can meet up and I can guide you through it.